Hey there, welcome to the DFS Build NFL Preseason Edition. This is what, our third, maybe fourth? I think it's third. Whatever. We've done a few preseason videos already this year. Definitely handed out some good picks. Hopefully that helped you out. If this video does help you in any way, give it a like and also subscribe to the channel. You can also access our Patreon and Discord for $5.99 a month. Get our NFL DFS preseason core plays and our pick and write-ups for everything else, obviously including access to Discord. So all that is fun, and you should definitely have interest in that because it's all a bunch of stuff for just one low monthly rate. But let's get into it here. Obviously, we have week one NFL DFS just a few weeks away, but we can still make some money. There's a lot of edge to be had in NFL DFS preseason. I'm going to go over the top plays, and then if you want my finalized core for this slate, this Friday 2-game slate starting tomorrow, obviously, you can hit up our Patreon and Discord. All right, let's get into it. Starting with the Titans. The Titans, they already said they're going to play the starters like in every game. They played a little bit in the first game. I would imagine they'll play a little bit more. We're probably looking at a quarter of play here. So I think Cam Ward and the starters like Calvin Ridley, I think they're okay. I think you can take a shot on them, especially since the slate is so small and the ownership is going to go in a way different direction. We'll talk about that in a little bit as far as the chalkier, safer plays for sure. So Cam Ward's a little bit interesting for tournaments. He is certainly low floor just because he's a rookie and he's only going to play about a quarter. But who knows? What if they extend his leash? He plays more. What if he's hyper efficient and that he comes out and wrecks? He is a very accurate passer. He could just dink and dunk up and down the field, and just he and Ridley could be a really interesting GPP winning stack. Just obviously very risky. Since he's only going to play about a quarter or so, probably max, it looks like Brandon Allen is going to be a pretty darn good play. I would imagine he would play the rest of the first half and into or deep into the third quarter, if not longer. The only other guy here that we should worry about is going to be Tim Boyle, and that's never a guy you should be worrying about. I think the only issue there is that he might play a bit regardless of not being good. I don't want to play Tim Boyle. I have a tiny amount of interest in Cam Ward and GPPs, and Brandon Allen is in play because he should get about 2+ quarters in this game. All right, let's kick it over to running back. Tony Pollard is the guy right now. Tyjae Spears has a high ankle sprain. He is out, and he will probably miss the first week of the season, maybe longer, especially if he has issues or complications with it. So Pollard's going to be. I mean, if I were the Titans, I would not play Pollard very much in this game, if at all. I would just play the other guys just because we need to figure out if I'm Tennessee, can Julius Chestnut or Khalil Mullins, can those guys come in and be Tyjae Spears for a few weeks, right? So Chestnut and Mullins are definitely the two guys I'd be looking at here. We can look at these other spares just because they'd get run in the fourth quarter, but I would imagine the bulk of the action is going to be soaked up by Mullins and Chestnut. Mullins looked pretty good last game. He's a bit of a power back, a little bit more explosive than people let on. So I think he's a really good play. If Pollard plays, he would just come in after him, maybe mix in a little bit with the ones. But he looks really good. I want to say this, though. It doesn't matter what the running back situation is. I've been burned left and right. I played Taj Brooks. I played DJ Giddens. I played the guy on the Buccaneers. I mean, I've played so many guys on these preseason slates where you would imagine they'd be looking at really a good amount of touches, and then they just barely play at all. Part of that is if they have the RB2 job locked up, the team probably is just going to play it safe and not really risk it. So that's something we have to worry about for sure. But it's a 2-game slate. There's only so many options. Mullins looks really good. If the ownership's really going to go to Mullins, I have no problem at all just kicking over Chestnut and just hoping he's the better play. But both are viable. And because it's a small slate, you could pair them and hope they both just do well in their time on the field. Over at wide receiver, Ridley, like I said, Ridley, I don't know about Tyler Lockett, but those guys, if we're going to get a quarter of the vets with Cam Ward, I think they're okay GPP plays. Definitely not core plays because we think their time's going to be limited. They are older players. And we've seen already, the Jaguars played a little bit in the first game and their guys really didn't do much. So they really got to hit. Not everybody's going to come out like Joe Burrow and the Bengals did and be super, super efficient in limited action. But they are still interesting as far as GPPs are concerned. Van Jefferson is battling for a role. You got Alec Manor, I think it is. I'm butchering that name for sure. And Cameron DK. Those guys are young guys, certainly battling for position. And I feel like they're both 4th or 5th round picks or 3rd round picks. But these guys are pretty darn good athletes, and they are going to get playing time in this game. Whether they get mixed in with the ones or not, irrelevant. I think they're probably in for at least 1 to 2 quarters of play. So they look pretty darn interesting to me. Restrepo, again, I mentioned him last time. I would imagine he will be, maybe mixed in a little bit just because he is familiar with Cam Ward as they both played at Miami. But I would imagine he would get a good amount of reps to prove himself and potentially earn a roster spot. A tight end, I would not imagine more than a quarter from Chig. He is a fine GPP play at tight end because tight end kind of sucks no matter what slate we're talking about. But certainly on this 2-game slate, if you want to just take a shot at a quarter of Chig Okonkwo, I don't have any issue with that. He is an athletic dude who can pay off pretty quickly. If you're not going to play him, Gunnar Helm, the rookie behind him, he looks like a solid play. Helm was, I feel like he was a premium pick for the Titans. I can't recall exactly where he was picked. Yeah, 4th-round pick. I mean, fairly premium. So he is expected to come in and get that number 2 job. By all accounts, it sounds like he kind of has it. So I think he's a little risky. Like, again, if we're looking at Chig for a quarter, I would imagine Helm would get probably only a quarter or 2. But I think both are solid enough plays. And because Helm was a rookie, he stands a decent chance to get more than a quarter of play. Over in Atlanta, quarterback situation, Penix and Cousins are out. They will not play. So we're only looking at Easton Stick and Emory Jones. I lean Easton Stick. He did get way more playing time in the first game because the game was actually canceled due to injury. So I would not be shocked if it gets flipped and they just let Emory Jones play more. That said, they're both going to play a good chunk. I would imagine Stick gets at least 1.5 to 2 quarters, and then Emory Jones gets the rest. Stick is the more, weirdly so, the more polished player at this point. Certainly has more experience. Elite athlete, can run all over the place. So I like him a lot. And it's probably for me going to be down to him and one other guy that we'll get to in a bit. But much like Brandon Allen, Emory Jones is going to see time in the game. So if you want to get a contrarian play and go away from the Easton Stick ownership or somebody else that we'll talk about soon, then Emory Jones is a solid GPP play for sure. Sticking in Atlanta at running back, not going to see Bijan Robinson, probably not going to see Tyler Algier. As we should not. Carlos Washington, I liked him the other slate, and then he was hurt. He was, I think he was like a late scratch or something. I didn't end up using him, but I was looking at him, and then I found out he wasn't going to play. So that was a good fade. But he's not going to play, I would imagine, because he's banged up with a hammy. So we're looking at Nate Carter, Deshaun Corbin, UFL stud, and Elijah Dotson. Elijah Dotson's pretty explosive. I think Nate Carter got some good burn in the first preseason game, three rushes, 12 yards. But again, that game got canceled. So they might start looking to some of these guys who didn't really get a full opportunity. Deshaun Corbin is one of them. I was pretty high going into that slate on Corbin just because he was super productive in the UFL. Not like a super, super good athlete, but I mean, he was carrying a full load for the UFL, and he was putting up good numbers. So without all these top 3 guys, like these other 3 dudes are going to split the work. They're all going to get out there. Corbin's kind of my favorite for GPP, but Elijah Dotson's probably the cash game play. I think he looks like one of the better running back plays on the slate. Drake London, Mooney, McLeod, those guys are not going to play, so we can look at Washington or Hodge. Drummond though is the guy who is super active. He caught all 8 of his targets for 63 yards. I think he even scored a touchdown. Doesn't say that there, but against the Lions. So he looked really good. Obviously, he's going to be owned because of that. Like everybody's going to go box score watching and be like, oh, Drummond and them have a really good connection. Let's go get him. I think it's fine. You can go play him for sure. I would probably looking for leverage there a little bit. Chris Blair, Nick Nash, those guys, I think they're going to get a lot of playing time as well. And they could be interesting leverage plays off of the Drummond ownership. Still think Drummond's a really good play, but it's a 2-game slate. And you can't play everybody. So if you want to look for a little bit of leverage, that might be a good way to do it. At tight end, we're not going to see Kyle Pitts, Charlie Warner, and stuff like that. I don't really want to do that. I think Joshua Simon's a little bit interesting just because he is really big and super athletic. How much burn is he going to get? He's probably going to share the load with all these dudes, so it's tough to really know. He's just a shot in the dark at a weak position. Moving on here, we got KC. I thought since they played last week, the Chiefs starters would play a little bit more this week. It sounds like they're not going to play at all. So definitely keep an eye on that. Let's see if the latest news here. Yeah, Randy Reid is so tough to trust in general. He said there's a good chance he will not play on Friday. Patrick Mahomes and most of the vets. So if that's true, then, I guess we can just ignore the Chiefs starters. Gardner Minshew would get the start, probably play about a quarter, and then we're looking at the backups playing the rest of the game. So like Bailey Zappi or something, like, I guess. I'm not really interested in that, though. I'm looking in preseason for guys that actually we can feel good about playing, and we also feel reasonably good about their talent. And I'm not very high on Zappi. So I'm not doing that. Not doing the KC quarterbacks in this slate. Isaiah Pacheco, Kareem Hunt, Elijah Mitchell. I would not expect to see a lot of them, if anything. Instead, Rashard Smith, the versatile rookie, I would imagine they are going to get him going, just ramp up his experience in the hopes that they can use him a lot, during the regular season and be like a regular contributor. Again, though, like he's been flashing in training camp and everything, so another situation where you would imagine, let's get his feet wet, let's get him acclimated. But at the same time, if he's a talented guy that they like, they might protect him. So I think he's a little bit risky, but he is borderline core play just because it is a small slate and he looks like one of the better options on the board. Carson Steele, though, is really interesting too. If they protect Smith, Steele would get a ton of work. And even if they don't, like these other vets just probably aren't going to play very much, if at all. So you're looking at like 3 running backs for KC, and Steele is going to be one of them. He was a preseason darling last year, got a little bit of an opportunity during the regular season, looked okay until he fumbled and lost his job. So I think there's narrative there too for him to push to make the roster because he is not a lock as things stand. So he is interesting for GPPs for sure, but Smith looks like the chalky play. Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster, I wouldn't expect to see any of them. I suppose maybe somebody like Juju could end up coming in and playing just to like actually make sure they make the roster, because I don't know if it's guaranteed at this point. You got Rice, you got Worthy, you got Hollywood Brown. Those 3 guys are going to make it. You got the rookie Royals. That's 4. You got some of these other guys like Tyquan Thornton. You got Sky Moore trying to make the roster spot. So you got Brownlee, Remigio. Like you got a lot of like pretty talented guys that have to prove like they deserve to be one of the top 6 wide receivers for KC. So Juju could be out there. If he is, I think just because he's a vet trying to prove himself, I think he would be viable in that case. My guess is he and all the other main guys just won't play. Royals then would be a really, really good play. Nice athlete. They picked him, I think, in the 3rd or 4th round this year. So he looks like he would get a ton of run and be a really good play. Thornton trying to prove himself, former 1st-round pick for the Patriots. He was a bust there, but he's got good size and nice athleticism, good speed. And apparently he's been doing well in camp. So that all makes Thornton kind of interesting to me, assuming he is a full go here. And now they're saying he's likely to make the Chiefs 53-man roster. Like they always say stuff like that. I don't think it's likely. I think he certainly needs to keep proving himself, and this could be a platform for him to do that. These other guys, like I mentioned, Brownlee, he was a standout for the Jets last year. He could make some waves here. Sky Moore is on his last legs with KC, perhaps the entire league. But he is a good athlete who they probably want to give the opportunity to make the team. So those guys all are in play for me for sure. Royals is just the number 1. Travis Kelce is not going to play in this game. Noah Gray would be limited if he does play. I think you can still use Noah Gray if he does start. Perhaps we get a quarter out of him just because he is the backup. Robert Tonyan got a good amount of burn in the last game. That could continue again. He is an older veteran, but he also is no lock to make the team, so he may need to prove himself here. Whether that's the case or not, I would imagine the top 2 guys are limited or out. So Jared Wiley, freak athlete, really good size, really good athleticism. Hasn't really panned out yet because obviously Kelce and Gray are kind of blocking him as well. But I would imagine him to get a lot of work here, and due to just his skills, he could be super productive if things go well. So he looks really, really good. He's probably one of my top 2 tight ends on the entire board. All right, lastly, I kind of was suggesting one of the other quarterbacks, Jalen Milroe. He was chalk last time, and he busted. He was brutal. It just wasn't good. 6 for 10 for 61 yards and then 38 yards on the ground. He did not find the end zone. Drew Lock lapped him in that game. So no Sam Darnold again, I believe. Let me just check. Yeah. Well, they will play, actually. I don't think they're going to play very much, though. He said, our guys are going to start the game. We'll see how it goes. Okay, so I would imagine – since they did not play the first game, we're looking at a quarter of the starters if they go out there, and then we'll probably see Drew Lock for a quarter, and then we'd probably get Jalen Milroe for the rest of the game. Now, Darnold and the starters playing does complicate things for sure, because then that means all 3 of these quarterbacks are playing, and it doesn't guarantee anything. the whole we'll see how it goes thing is super annoying. Because that could mean like if they go out and just like, get a scoring drive on the first series, then McDonald's like, that's good start, and that's it. Or he could say, you know what, I want to see more, and then they play the entire first half or something. You just don't know how it's going to go. So that, to me, makes Sam Darnold in the Cam Ward territory, where he is an interesting GPP play, and we can stack him with some other Seahawks guys if we are so bold. I don't think it's the safe route at all. It's also not going to be the popular route unless we get like firm confirmation that he's going to play a ton. I doubt it. I think he's going to play about a quarter. Just think he's a GPP play. So Locke and Milroe should both be viable. I do still lean towards Milroe because they know what they have in Darnold and Locke, and Milroe was pretty raw in that first game, and he needs a lot of field time. So I would imagine he gets at least, 1.5 quarters, probably the entire second half. That would be the hope. At running back, if the starters are out there, I would imagine we have a decent chance of Ken Walker making an appearance. They've been really keeping him in bubble wrap, and he's been banged up, though, so I wouldn't make it a guarantee whatsoever. So we could see a good amount of Zach Charbonnet, depending on how long the starters are out there. So he would look okay. But again, if we're being logical about it, and hopefully the Seahawks coaches are, which, by the way, is not always the case, Walker and or Charbonnet would see a quarter max. And then we'd be looking at preseason darlings from a week ago. George Holani, he was a stud, 61 yards and a touchdown, 20-yard catch. And Damian Martinez also, he was not nearly as productive as Holani. So I think the ownership is naturally going to flock to Holani just because he was actually productive. I think Damian Martinez is just as good of a play based off of potential playing time and talent. So I like Martinez as a possible leverage play. That said, Holani also looks really, really good. So JSN, MVS, Cooper Kupp, they all could get up to a quarter. Who knows how long they get? So technically they're all. Do I really want to roll the dice on aging Cooper Kupp in a preseason game? No, not really. Nor do I want to play MVS ever. JSN, though, if he and Sam Darnold are going to play up to a quarter, possibly, I think that is kind of interesting as a little stack that probably will go completely overlooked. That said, I'm assuming those starters only play a quarter max. So guys like Jake Bobo, Ricky White, the third, and of course, Torrey Horton, those guys all look really, really good. Horton's going to be monster chalk just because he's probably going to get, 1.5, 2 quarters of play here. He looked great, scored a touchdown in his first game. He is a terrific athlete. They want to give him the opportunity to basically make MVS irrelevant, and then he can be that wide receiver 3 on this team. Certainly possible by the looks of it already. So those guys all look pretty good here. Bobo could get a little extra run. Ricky White III's been banged up, so maybe he gets a little bit more burn. He did catch a pass for 14 yards despite that injury, and now he's closer to full strength. So I think he is even better going into this game. At tight end, to wrap things up, we got A.J. Barner as the perceived starter, so he could get up to a quarter of play. I think he's okay just because technically the Seahawks haven't made anything official as far as who their starting tight end is going to be. Second-round pick rookie Elijah Arroyo is going to get the opportunity to unseat Barner because Barner is nothing special anyways. So with that being the case, I would imagine Elijah Arroyo gets pretty good burn, and he looks like a top 2 tight end play on the board. And that's probably going to do it. As far as defenses go, I would just look for leverage here. If people are going to be playing a lot of Milroe and a lot of Brandon Allen and a lot of the Falcons quarterbacks, we should be looking at the Titans defense and perhaps the Falcons defense and the KC defense. I know that's 3 out of 4 defenses. My point is, if you're not using that guy, that's probably the guy you want to target with the defense and just kind of, play with your exposures and stuff. You can play a single entry and just play a good amount of the chalkier plays or the core plays that I hand out later and then do something different besides that. Or you can just stretch it out across your 20 teams or how many teams you play and just get different exposures and, maybe pick a couple spots where you're going very underweight compared to the field and pick a couple spots where you're targeting sleepers that nobody's on, a la Sam Darnold and JSN or Cam Ward and Kelvin Ridley, that kind of thing. All right, so hopefully that does help you out. The goal here is always to help you. These videos are free. Nothing's finalized here. We still have a day before the games actually hit, and it's preseason. So you just really never know what's going to happen. I would go lightly, but hopefully this advice does help you. If it does, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and consider joining our Patreon/Discord. Just $5.99 for everything that we do, and you get access to it, and you can come chat with other people trying to win just like you. All right, thanks for watching, and good luck.